Music City Social is produced by Star Maker PR Group, providing publicity and public relations services to the entertainment industry. Learn more at starmakerpr.com.
My name is Drew Bourke, and you're listening to Music City Social. My guest today moved to Nashville in 1987. Since that time, he has played guitar and sung for some of music's top artists, including Pam Tillis, Randy Travis, Alice Cooper, Lee Greenwood, Randy Owen, Olivia Newton-John, and John Elefante, to name just a few. I would also note he plays with most artists at the peak of their careers. He is the guitar vocalist an entertainer hires when they need perfection. In addition to touring, he owns and operates a home-based recording business that rivals many studios on Music Row. In 1999, he won the SESAC Song of the Year and Songwriter of the Year awards. He is a founding member of the band Six Wire, best known for becoming a finalist on the American Idol spin-off TV show America's Next Great Band. Most recently, he and creative partner Andy Childs have launched Veritable Music Publishing Group. And the icing on the cake, he plays and sings in Rayna James' backup band on the ABC hit television show Nashville. On October 31st, 2012, his talents were recognized by the show's producers when he was asked to write and perform an original song on the show. Steve Mandile, welcome to Music City Social.
Thanks for having me.
Steve, you've been in Nashville for 25 years now, so let's go back to 1987 and tell us, why you moved here. What brought you to Nashville?
Well, I moved to Nashville. It was kind of a last-minute decision. My roommate at the time said he was a songwriter, and he said, "Man, I'm thinking about moving to Nashville. Why don't you come with me and share the bills?" And I was like, "Okay." And that was kind of the whole. It wasn't a lot of ceremony, really. We just kind of said, "Oh, we'll do it." And, we had good jobs as musicians in Dallas, so we thought, we could always come back, and get another gig or whatever. So we thought, we'll give it a shot. We'll go get some wait a table and see what we can get going. And when we moved to town, we had a friend who knew a guy, and heard that Lee Greenwood was auditioning players. So we ended up getting an audition. And a very long story short, we both got the gig. And
wow.
Well, part of it was his criteria. We kind of stepped into a really good situation because his criteria was he didn't really want somebody that was like from Nashville, and he wanted some guys that weren't necessarily country looking. We had long hair, and so we it's just one of those right place, right time kind of things.
Yeah. Who was the other guy?
His name's Dave Watson. He actually has he's actually, if you're a hunter and you watch hunting shows, he's got a big hunting show, and he's actually pretty famous as being a hunter.
Didn't Dave have a cut on a Chicago album?
I wouldn't doubt it. He was a great songwriter and a great singer. I think he still performs his music, Wow. And he does everything.
Now, I've known you for, 23 years now. And in that time, I've seen you grow as a songwriter, a producer, an engineer. Your home recording studio rivals many studios that I visited on Music Row. For example, Rob Thomas from Matchbox 20 has recorded songs in your home studio. And I know you lease your studio to other artists, but you also help newcomers, record really high-quality demos, and you could obviously record an album here. So tell us a little bit about, your recording, and how does someone find you that's looking for these type of services?
Well, I kind of I was doing it just kind of by default, really, because I always loved recording, and I've always had some sort of a studio, and it always kind of seemed to be in my writing deals when I was doing publishing deals, that I would do my own demos because I could do them cheaper and they turned out like I wanted them to. And so when I decided, after we did the Next Great American Band that you were talking about, my publishing deal was kind of at a crossroads, and so I decided to branch out on my own just to see how I could do independently. And the only way I really knew to make a living at that point was to work my studio a lot, you know. So I actually did put out a shingle and just said, put it on the internet, and hey, I'm doing like even mail order demos just to generate some income. And it just, I got really busy. A lot of it was because I was kind of embedded in the music business, the publishing part, and I knew a lot of songwriters, and people started coming here and doing demos, and they would do just one or two, and I would keep most of the clients that I had just because they liked it, So, and it was inexpensive too, so that was helpful. But I think it was mostly just word of mouth, and just kept building it and building it and building it, and I get more work than I can do.
Let's talk about your songwriting, because I'm very familiar with your music, and I hear a lot of different styles. And to me, overall, you have a very unique flavor, and it fits into a lot of different genres. So what inspires you to write a song? Oh, man, I don't know. I mean, I try to write, and I'm from West Texas. I grew up on country music, and I try to, I have songs that I can write that are, more traditional country, but it's not my favorite kind of music. I'm a huge Beatles fan and Crowded House and those kinds of things. And I kind of gravitate toward melody, interesting melody. And I end up writing songs, especially when I write by myself. I end up writing songs that I want to listen to myself. And I don't know if that's necessarily the smartest way to do it if you're trying to make money, but I don't know. That's just kind of just the way that I do it. So I guess it does kind of fall in the cracks a little bit. It can be a lot of it depends on the instrumentation, and some things on the radio that aren't very country, but you throw a steel on it and it sounds more country. Or if you have a country or singer on, I don't sing super country, so sometimes if I sing my own demos, they don't really turn out super country, and I don't know if it's rock either, but it's probably somewhere in the cracks. This things like maybe more like pop or rock was back in the 70s with the Eagles and those kinds of things that weren't necessary, that were kind of they were kind of both. They were country songs, but they were on pop radio. I kind of think maybe I fall in those cracks somewhere. That's neat. Now, do you write purely out of inspiration, like you get an idea and you write a song, or at times do you say, I want to write a song for a Tim McGraw?
Well, it depends. A lot of times you get inside information especially if you're published, or if you have a relationship with the people that are looking for music for people. They'll tell you what they want. And when you get that kind of information, it's kind of stupid to not try to write something that's real specific. When I'm sitting here by myself, it's in the middle of the night. A lot of times it'll just be something from me, and I don't know, the song, it's one of those things as a songwriter, really, I think their creativity and doing business don't meet a lot of times. I think if you're trying to write a song to get a cut with somebody else, a lot of times you're doing business and just trying to, you're worried more about the craft and trying to get a cut and trying to be nice and hooky and repetitive. And I mean, I like commercial hooky music, and the stuff that I write, I think, is more is that all those elements, and sometimes songs can be more on the creative side, and sometimes songs can be a little more on the business side, and not often enough. I don't think that both of them go together. They do, people. There's great songs on the radio that I love, but man, a hit song is really, it's hard to write a hit song, So I think you just try to write for your inspiration and see if it's something that you like, then hopefully everybody else will like it too.
Yeah. Now, something you're going to be dealing with, and we'll touch on this in a little bit, but you're going to have to deal with songwriters that they have to produce in your next business venture. And again, we'll talk about that in a second. But how does a songwriter who has to produce 3, 4, 5 songs a month, how does he create inspiration and still do, what's required?
That's a good question. I think that the only thing you can really do, I mean, unless you are actually cheating on your wife, then you have to figure out how you would be if you're writing a cheating song or whatever. I mean, I think you just have to put yourself in those positions and see how you would be, or if someone cheated on you, or if you're in love. Even if you're not in love, you have to write a love song, but you just got to put yourself in that position and try to be, try to be true to it, and try to be original. There's a lot of factors to it. I mean, a lot of times you'll write a song and you just be really excited about halfway through it, and then all of a sudden it'll just click and you go, what? You know what? This is just not a very good song. So, I don't know. It's just, I think you just, you put yourself in scenarios and try to act it out like you're an actor a lot. There's not a lot of difference in that, I don't think.
Yeah. How vulnerable are you willing to be to write a song? I
think you have to just let it all. You can't. It depends. If you're just writing a fun song, it doesn't really matter. But I'll give you a great example. Chip Eston, who's the lead actor in the television show Nashville that we're working on now, the ABC show. He was over here, and we were talking about writing, this specific song for his character, and his character is basically, it's like she's married. And they have a long past, where they had a relationship before, I believe, and maybe they got a little close, and she ran back to the husband and called everything off as far as the music, because he was in her band and all this kind of stuff. So we wrote this song called "Pretend It Isn't There," and man, it's like this really emotional song, and it really is. You can't just make that stuff up. You have to dig in, to something inside yourself that someplace that you've been, and you have to share it, and you can't hold it back to the other writer, or if you're writing by yourself, but especially if you got another writer. I mean, you can't I believe that this song would be better if the guy said this or whatever. You have to just put your stuff out there,
Yeah. Steve, one thing that some people may not know about you, in addition to recording and live touring and singing and writing songs, you've been on quite a few TV shows. And I don't mean local cable channel shows. I'm talking about nationally televised shows. And most recently, you're on the hit ABC television show, Nashville. So, I mean, how does that come to be? How do you go from, guitar player, songwriter to being on TV shows?
Well, we got a phone call. We've done a lot of television. It started with Nashville Star. We did Nashville. We were the house band. Me and a couple of the other guys in Six Wire were in the house band for Nashville Star. And then we were on the Next Great American Band as Six Wire as contestants, which was a total turning of the, flipping of the page there. But and from that, we ended up we were the house band for Can You Duet on CMT and CMT's Next Superstar. I was music director on both of those shows. And, and then that led to, appearances on American Idol. And it just... one of those, again, it's the connections, people that and because we'd done so much television, this show came to Nashville. It's called Nashville. It's on ABC, and it's the story of an older, kind of maybe an artist that's at the top, maybe on our way down, kind of like a Martina Faith Hill kind of caliber artist that's on our way down, and a Taylor Swift kind of artist that's way on our way up. That should really, and it's the dynamic between the both of them, and
hate.
Yeah, you're right. So they actually called us to be in one of the bands. Of course, they asked us to be in the older artist band, which I think is typecasting. But we turned it down at first. We didn't know what it was, and so Steve Gibson, he runs the band at the Opry, and Pete Fisher, who runs the Opry, called me, and they said, "You've got to do this song, do this show, because it's the real deal, man. It's a real deal." But it was really good because we decided to do it, and it's been a lot of fun. It's funny because we're faking it. We're not playing anything. We're not even the band that's recorded. Which, and if we're just like up there being in it, it's kind of fun, just kind of just acting or whatever. I doubt they'll ever give us a line. But they better not. I'm sure they wouldn't. But anyway, but it's been fun.
Let's talk about your band, Six Wire. It's been a few years since you released a record, yet the band has tons of name recognition, still a strong demand for performing at corporate functions. But let's go back to your experience in getting a record deal with Warner Brothers. Now, recording contracts don't always go as planned, and there's a lot of factors involved that determines the success of a record, and a lot of money, egos. So, okay, Six Wire records a record, you film music videos, those air on CMT. Six Wire went through the major label Record Machine. So tell us what that was like.
Well, we decided, when we were doing the band, that we were going to just play. We weren't going to do a showcase. It was, showcases, or people that don't know what showcases are, they basically, everything that you've ever done in your whole life is all in this little 30-minute capsule of music, and everybody in the world comes out and sees if there's somebody that they want to sign. And I just don't know if that's a real, I understand it, but if you have an off night or whatever, I think it's a dangerous way to present yourself as an artist. So we decided to just go ahead and just play I think it was every other Tuesday at Douglas Corner down on 8th Avenue in Nashville. And so we did, and it seemed like every time, we did it for about 4 or 5 months, and it seemed like every time that we would play, we'd say, "Oh my gosh, this guy's in the crowd, we have to be fantastic." And "Oh my God, next time, this guy's in the crowd, we have to be fantastic." We always had to be on top of our game. So by the time Warner Brothers came around and watched this, we were running on all cylinders. And what they loved about it, what was interesting, I produced it and I mixed it and I mastered it, the project, wrote all the songs, with a lot of them with Andy, our lead singer. And we played on the record, and we were very, very, very self-contained, and they just absolutely loved that. And Jim had Norman and Paige Levy are the ones that signed us over there. And they were our big cheerleaders, and everybody was really excited about the possibility of the band. And it was it was a very vocal band. It was kind of like it was an Eaglesy, Little River band kind of a thing. And but we, it was country too. So we put a single out. It was doing really, really well. And right in the middle of our single, Jim Ed Norman left the company, and Paul Worley took over, and they changed over their whole radio staff in the middle of our single, and and I'm not making any excuses, but I think what happens when labels change that much personnel, the first thing they do is what's not making money,
right? And
they looked at the Six Wire project and they just, they wanted to go in a different direction. So after our first single, we were, as a matter of fact, it was right in the middle of our first single. And it's just one of those things. And we just, they asked us to make a second record, and we did. And it's more like, well, we want you to cut, Nashville songs. We don't want you to cut your own songs, and we don't want you to produce it by yourself. We want you to co-produce it. And, we want to run you through, basically, he even said, the machine or whatever. And, it just wasn't, I don't know. I just didn't really recognize a band anymore, So when they let us go, I don't think anybody was really, really disappointed. We were disappointed that we couldn't succeed where we were, because we liked everybody that was at Warner Brothers, and we had a good rapport with everyone. But at the end of the day, everybody that was our big cheerleaders was gone, and they wanted to, they didn't really have anything to do with us as far as, them have any kind of ownership of us. They didn't find us, they didn't sign us. So I think it's just one of those things where they just, they wanted to go a different direction. So, we suffered for it.
Does it bother you that deal ended with Warner Brothers, or is it more of a, thank God, because I wouldn't be here?
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. Every time you do something, you want to win.
Yeah.
So we thought we had a good record, and the fact that they came off the first single and they just said, we want to make another record. And I was like, when we put our heart and soul in that record, we thought we had several singles on that record. But, we look back at it, and it was 10 years ago at this point, so we've moved past it, but we're all best friends, and to this day, and we still play together all the time, and every situation that we're in, anything musically, everybody's involved in it, so, we're still making music, which I guess is the most important thing. It would have been a lot of fun if we could have been Six Wire, to make a living and everything, but it didn't work out. So What do? You can regret it and wish that it would have happened. And I take it, regret's not the right word, because we don't regret it. It was a lot of fun. But we do wish that it would have succeeded, but you can't dwell on it too much.
Sure. Well, let's talk about your future. And I just learned this the other day. You and your creative partner, Andy Childs from Six Wire, creating a music publishing company named Veritable Music.
Right.
And this is extremely interesting, because I don't know many music publishing companies, especially right now, that just got $2 million in funding. And I think the economy is different in Nashville than it is the rest of the United States. We live in a great place, and real estate hasn't plummeted, but that is huge, huge news. So tell us how you and Andy, decided to move into that, because you've worked with Andy for a long, long time. Why now? Why was it, okay, we need to do this?
Oddly enough, I've tried to put this company together. I think this was like the 4th incarnation of it. And and it was me putting it together, trying to find, investment money or whatever. And we became really close a couple times. And Andy's been involved in all of them as a writer. I just, because I just want to surround myself with great people, and
that's why I'm here.
Yeah, exactly right. And so he was always a part of it. So he actually ended up having a friend that was a wealthy friend that wanted to help him, and asked what he would like to do. So he called me and he said, "What about us doing this deal together?" And I was like, because he's my best friend, so I was like, "Sure, I want to anything you are in, I'm in." So. Long story short, we got financed for 5 years, which is the length of it is really important too, because it takes a while to get things rolling in a publishing company. And we have a lot of friends that have done it and that have succeeded in it, and that was one of their main criteria, to make sure you get at least 5 years. So, and it's not matter of fact, it's not even a finite 5 years. It's like, let's do it for 5 years and see what happens, But that's kind of where we're at. We're gonna. It's a production and publishing company, so we're going to try to find some artists to create and generate as well, and try to sign a few writers. And we're going to do try to get cuts here, but we also have a guy in Los Angeles who is going to be giving us opportunities to for film and TV and advertising and things like that.
That's excellent. You've had cuts with Ronnie Dunn, Tim McGraw, Mark Wills, Craig Morgan. And so you and Andy are not new to getting cuts, but for our listeners, Nashville is a huge songwriting town.
Oh,
and songwriting is big business. People retire on that. Their song catalogs are marketed and sold because of the value that they have. And I'm curious, now that the table is kind of turned, how will you and Andy find staff writers in an area that is just overflowing with, I'm assuming, excellent songwriting talent? How do you find guys that can pump out?
I don't think finding them is going to be the problem. I think deciding who you're going to work with is going to be the problem, because I know how it is. There were times back not that long ago when people were making $75,000, $100,000 a year being a songwriter. Of course you had to have a good discography, but even before I had a lot going on, I had a decent draw. But those days they're pretty much over. They may come back, but I think everybody's gotten smart, and but I don't mean the publishers, but even the writers have gotten smart. They just don't want to incur a whole bunch of debt somewhere. So if they sign a deal for 20 or 30 grand instead of 75 grand or whatever, over a couple of years they're in $60,000 worth of debt, but they get one cut and they obliterate it, So it's, I think people are just everybody's being smarter, demo costs are going down, and they're trying to be smarter with all that, because it's all debt, and it's all stuff you have to pay back. A writer draw basically it's kind of like a loan from the publishing company.
Is that what a record deal is? Is that a loan?
That's a little bit different, because you get an advance from the record company that you don't necessarily have to pay back, But most of the stuff that they do, like for a record company, like if they make a record on you, you'll have to pay like that back. Or some things are like the videos, you have to pay like half of it back, or it just depends on how your deal is structured. Right. But a publishing deal itself is based on a draw, and so if I pay you $30,000 a year for 2 years, and then you get a cut and you make $100,000, I get the first $60,000, and then you get the $40,000, after that. But so I think, but to answer your question, I think that we're gonna go really slow, and try to figure out who's out there and who wants a deal, because we're gonna have a really, really great song plugger, and that's another big step, and we're gonna take our time, finding that as well.
It sounds like songwriting changed. I mean, because I used to work with some guys that had a small draw. They weren't rich, but it kept them going while they wrote songs. And
right.
How do you think Nashville's music business has changed just in the last 10 to 12 years? Because, I mean, to me, it's changed drastically, but you're in the middle of it. How has it changed?
It's interesting. I've been here 25 years, so it's interesting. It's kind of like you watch the size of the buildings up and down Music Road, grow and shrink and sell and be bought and all these different things. And I think that, I don't know why they do it, but I watch a company like Big Machine, which is a great example. That's Taylor Swift's label, and now they have Rascal Flatts and Reba and all these these veteran acts over there. But I think Taylor's pretty much keeping the lights on over there. But you wouldn't drive right past their building. You wouldn't even. Matter of fact, there's not even a sign. It looks like a little house, wow. And then you walk in it, and it's like the rabbit hole. You go in it, it's like this is huge, amazing building on the inside. But they have a couple different buildings across the street. But they've been really smart, and they're just not spending. They don't have a big high rise. So I think that's probably the new. The way things are being done now, it's kind of the new model that people aren't, I don't know that executives have to, all of them have to be making $1 million, I think like with Andy and I were, with our situation, we're trying to keep it really, really tight. We're not even going to have a building, ours is going to be pretty much virtual. We're going to run out of the studio here in his place, and, our cell phones and have meetings where we need to have them, and I think the most important thing is the music. I think everybody's kind of learning that, instead of like all these publishers that we've talked to before we did our deal, were saying they just weren't handing out exorbitant draws, but they've said, oddly enough, that even the most veteran writers were just coming to me. I don't even want to draw. I just need to get my songs out on the street.
Sure. So
they'll do like a co-publishing thing where they'll keep part of their publishing and give the other part of the publishing to the publisher, and then they go out and they pitch their songs. And nobody's out any money. It's just some time, So I don't know. I think it's good. I think everybody's, since the economy kind of went down like it did. I mean, that was right when I decided to open my studio. It was right when the economy was kind of going down. So the first thing I noticed that everybody was basically stopping doing a lot of demos. They weren't demoing out every song, or it had to be a really, really great song. I remember they were just doing a guitar vocal, which was a little bit less expensive, So I think everybody's just being. I think if one thing that's changed over the last 10 years, everybody's being a little bit smarter.
All right, my last question. I like to ask every guest the same question, so I think your input will be really, really interesting. Let's say you just moved to Nashville. You're a guitar vocalist, songwriter. What are your first steps in networking and finding work in Nashville?
Wow. Well, I mean, you just keep your ear to the ground, because there are opportunities out there, especially if you're a guitar player. I guess if you're, depending on what you're trying to do, there's different things or different approaches to what you want to do. But if I can give anybody any advice, it would be never, ever, ever turn down any work. I don't care if it's in the biggest crap hole in Nashville.
And there's a lot of them.
Yeah. But what's going on is when you do those kinds of things is there's 4 or 5 other guys in the same crap hole, and so it's like then you're sitting there and you remember you have this. It's like you're in trenches, or you're going through hazing when you're in a fraternity or something. It's like you have a bond with those guys, and some, not everybody's going to be somebody that you're going to love, playing with, but you'll find those 2 or 3 guys, and next thing you know, after you do a whole bunch of things like that, you'll realize that everybody's in the same boat, and then it'll be like, then they get a better gig, and then they say, hey, I know this guitar player guy I work with in this place, and it's just, those are the kinds of things that happen. I think one of the most important things that you can build in Nashville is your network of people, and because it's all a who you know sort of town, and if somebody's worked with you before and you did a great job, and then you'll get recommended for other gigs, and preparation is the other thing. When you get to a gig, just make sure that you know the material, and just it's like being in AAA ball. You're down and you're working on your swing and all this kind of stuff, and then when you get called up to the big leagues, you don't want to just stay there. You don't want to just make a fairly good and not make an error. You want to hit a home run.
Right.
You know, so I guess when you get your opportunities, just try to make the most of them.
My guest today has been Steve Mandile. Steve owns and operates Steve Mandile Productions, where he writes and records music for both himself and other artists. He is the founding member of the band Six Wire, who continue to perform at private functions around the globe. He is also co-owner of the brand new company Veritable Music Group. Steve can also be seen on the hit television show Nashville that airs Thursday nights on ABC. You can learn more about Steve Mandile by visiting musiccitysocial.net, where you'll find photos, information, and links to all of Steve's companies, and also additional content not aired in this week's segment.
Music City Social is produced by Star Maker PR Group, providing publicity and public relations services to the entertainment industry. Learn more at starmakerpr.com. Promotional consideration provided by Super Rope Cinch. Secure anything with rope without ever tying or untying a knot. Learn more at superropecinch.com.